I want you to just picture this for a second.
Mm-hmm.
You are sitting at your desk. You are, like, absolutely drowning in your own deadlines.
Oh, yeah. We've all been there.
Right. The coffee is cold, the stress is super high, and you are finally in the zone. And then, out of nowhere, you hear it.
That little ping.
Yes. A coworker slides into your DMs with that deceptively innocent phrase. Hey, do you have a quick 5 minutes?
Oh, man. I mean, that is basically the most dangerous phrase in the modern workplace.
It really is.
Because, as we all know, it is literally never just 5 minutes.
Never. It's a trap every single time. But what do we actually do? We lie.
Yeah, we totally lie.
We type back like, sure, of course.
Yeah.
Usually with a little exclamation point or, a smiley face, just to show how incredibly happy we are to be interrupted.
Gotta keep up the appearances.
Exactly. We do it because we want to be seen as the ultimate team player, right? Building goodwill, one rescued spreadsheet at a time. But for today's deep dive, we are pulling from a really fascinating stack of sources to figure out what is actually going on here.
And the sources are great today, really eye-opening stuff.
Yeah, they are. We're looking at behavioral psychology studies on workplace altruism, some recent HR surveys on employee burnout, and a few pretty dense organizational management articles.
Very dense, but so valuable.
Right. So our mission today is to completely deconstruct this helpful office persona. And we're going to contrast it with the absolute opposite extreme, the ruthless boundary setter.
Which is a fun comparison.
It is. We need to figure out, is saying yes to your colleagues actually a strategic career asset? Or is it just a massive form of self-sabotage disguised as being nice?
It's a question that really requires us to, completely reframe how we look at our daily interactions.
Oh, absolutely.
Because the psychological and the professional cost of being nice, well, it's rarely accounted for in your job description, but it is heavily, heavily documented in the research we're looking at today.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because I want to start by dissecting that knee-jerk reaction.
The reflexive yes.
Yeah, that immediate reflexive sure we send back when the DM pops up. I mean, we convince ourselves that every time we drop our own work to fix someone else's emergency, we're networking.
Right, building alliances.
Exactly. But looking through these behavioral studies, I really have to push back on that narrative. Like, are we actually networking? Or are we just training our colleagues to treat us like a human vending machine that just, dispenses free labor?
What's fascinating here is the underlying psychology of the chronic helper. The behavioral studies actually explain this through the lens of signaling theory.
Signaling theory. Okay, how does that work in this context?
So when you act like that human vending machine, you aren't just completing a task for someone, you are sending a very clear, very loud psychological signal about your own value. Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. In an organizational ecosystem, dropping everything to accommodate someone else actively tells that coworker that their time is fundamentally more valuable than yours.
Oof. Wow, when you put it like that, it really stings.
I know, it's harsh.
But is it really that black and white? I mean, sometimes helping a coworker is just, it's just helping a coworker, isn't it?
Well, the intention might be pure, absolutely. But the learned behavior is what actually matters.
Right.
The research indicates that human beings are remarkably efficient at recognizing patterns of least resistance.
Oh, for sure. We always take the easy route.
Exactly. So every time you drop your own priorities to finish their report, you are basically teaching them how to treat you. You're establishing a precedent that your personal boundaries are highly flexible while theirs are rigid.
I see. So it's less about the single act of helping and more about the dynamic it establishes over time.
Precisely. It's the pattern. That makes a lot of sense. I want to bring up something I saw in the notes you shared, because there was a specific mechanism mentioned that I think everyone listening will instantly recognize.
Oh, I know which one you're going to say.
Yeah, the literature called it the quick question trap. Can you walk us through what the researchers actually found there?
Gladly. Because this is where we see the concept of cognitive load outsourcing.
Cognitive load outsourcing. That sounds exhausting already.
It really is. So the quick question trap involves that one colleague, and we all have one, who constantly pings you asking for help with tasks or information that they could easily just Google.
Oh my gosh, yes. Or find in the company handbook.
Right. Or just locate in the email thread that was literally sent out yesterday.
Yes. The classic, hey, what was the link to that shared drive again? Even though it's like pinned to the top of the Slack channel.
Exactly. According to the organizational management articles, these colleagues aren't actually asking for your unique expertise.
They aren't.
No, they are experiencing a minor friction point in their workflow. And rather than expend their own cognitive energy to solve it, they just outsource that friction onto you.
Oh, man. So you effectively become their personal search engine. It's not collaboration at all.
It isn't, not even a little bit. And the data on this is actually staggering.
Really? What do the numbers look like?
The HR surveys on productivity show that context switching, taking your brain out of deep, focused work to answer a seemingly simple question, it can cost you upwards of 20 minutes of lost focus.
Wait, really? 20 minutes just from one quick DM?
Yeah, up to 20 minutes. The cognitive cost to you is massive because your brain has to dump its current working memory and load up an entirely different context.
That is wild.
But to the coworker, it was a highly successful, completely frictionless transaction. They got what they wanted without putting in any effort.
And because you want to be the good team player, you validate that behavior. You go find the link and you send it to them.
Yeah.
Which effectively guarantees they will just do it again tomorrow.
That is the exact mechanism of learned helplessness in the workplace. You basically reward their laziness with your efficiency.
Ugh, that is so frustrating.
Huh.
Which actually leads right into the second scenario from the research. And I have to admit, reading about this one literally made my blood boil.
The credit vampire.
The credit vampire scenario.
Yeah.
Yes. The HR surveys seem to indicate this is a leading cause of quiet quitting. So, how does the literature actually define a credit vampire?
Oh, this is where the resentment really starts to curdle. A credit vampire operates on the disparity between invisible labor and visible sponsorship.
Okay, give me an example of that.
Let's say you spend hours, maybe even working late into the evening, fixing a teammate's completely broken project.
Right.
You essentially rewrite their entire presentation so it actually makes sense.
Yeah, you save them from total embarrassment in front of the team.
You do, but then Thursday rolls around, you are all in the big weekly team meeting, the boss pulls up the slide deck and says, "Wow, incredible work on this presentation."
Oh, I know where this is going.
And your teammate, they don't mention your late nights. They just smile, look the boss in the eye and say, "Thanks, I worked really hard on it."
Unbelievable.
They take full, unadulterated credit for the visible product.
While you were just sitting there in the Zoom gallery, completely muted, totally invisible.
Exactly.
I think what hurts the most in these situations isn't even the stolen credit, it's the aftermath.
Yeah.
Like, what do you usually get for your hours of labor?
A brief Slack message.
Yes, a private Slack message after the meeting that just says, "Hey, thanks for the help," sent exclusively to you, where absolutely no one in leadership can see it.
The organizational studies actually refer to this as the visibility paradox.
Visibility paradox, that makes perfect sense.
Right, because the public reward, the professional capital, goes entirely to the person who presented the work. Meanwhile, your actual contribution is kept safely hidden in the shadows of a direct message.
Which is just so toxic.
It is, and if we connect this to the bigger picture, we have to look at the bottom line for this martyr persona. The over-helpful person might think they are building a reliable network, right?
Yeah, like a safety net of colleagues who will jump to save them when the stakes are high.
Exactly, but I'm guessing you saw the data on that.
Yeah, I'm guessing the data does not support that optimistic view.
It doesn't at all. Network theory in the workplace shows that you aren't building a network of mutual support when you do other people's jobs. You are just accumulating a pile of empty thank yous.
Ouch.
Eh?
Empty thank yous.
And here's the brutal reality highlighted in the management articles. A private Slack message thanking you for doing someone else's job will not save you during the next round of corporate layoffs.
Well, absolutely not.
The leadership team doesn't see your invisible labor. They only evaluate the results that the credit vampire presented.
So the inevitable result of being this human vending machine isn't like a promotion or a glowing performance review. It's just becoming secretly burnt out, deeply resentful, and utterly unappreciated.
Spot on.
You are sacrificing your own well-being for a currency that has absolutely zero value in the actual corporate marketplace.
That is a perfect summary of the martyr's trajectory. You basically bankrupt your own time to fund someone else's career advancement.
Okay, so that brings us to the flip side of the coin. Because human behavior is reactive, right?
Very much so.
If being the office savior leads to burnout and zero credit, what happens when someone snaps and swings to the absolute opposite extreme? The sources dive into a contrasting persona. The anti-team player, the hyper-focused boundary protector.
Yes, the one who guards their time like a dragon sitting on a pile of gold.
Yes, we all know this person too.
Yeah.
They have their do not disturb status permanently on. I mean, it's a perpetual red dot next to their name.
Always.
They decline calendar invites with zero explanation, just decline. No polite message, no, hey, let's reschedule.
Nope, just gone.
And they seem to treat every single request for help, no matter how minor, as a literal personal attack on their productivity.
From a behavioral standpoint, they are completely impenetrable. They operate purely on transactional terms.
Right. And what I found so interesting in the psychology studies is how the rest of the office reacts to this person. We call them selfish.
We do.
We complain about them in the break room. We vent about them at lunch. We say things like, can you believe they just rejected my meeting invite to help brainstorm?
Yeah, the outrage is palpable.
But the research suggests there is a hidden truth to that outrage, doesn't it?
There is, and it requires us to look at the sociology of envy.
Envy, really?
Yeah. When psychologists unpack the complaints directed at the extreme boundary setter, the outrage is very often just a mask for jealousy. We call them selfish, but secretly, we are intensely jealous of their autonomy.
Jealous. That feels like a bit of a stretch. I think most people are just genuinely annoyed that the person isn't pulling their weight in the collaborative sense.
Annoyance is certainly part of it, for sure. But look at the outcome. Why are we jealous? Because that ruthless boundary protector actually closes their laptop and leaves the office at 5 p.m. They go home, they see their family, they completely disconnect. Meanwhile, the rest of the team is stuck at their desks at midnight, fixing the formatting errors of the credit vampire.
Oh, wow. Okay, I see it now. So we are projecting our own exhaustion onto their boundaries. We are mad that they figured out how to protect themselves from the organizational chaos, while we are still out here acting like the vending machine.
Precisely. Their ability to confidently say no holds up a psychological mirror to our own inability to do the same.
That is deep.
It forces the overhelper to realize that their late nights aren't entirely thrust upon them by a cruel universe. They are, in large part, the result of their own choices and their lack of boundaries.
So what does this all mean? Because I really have to challenge this conclusion. The productivity gurus on LinkedIn are always telling us to, ruthlessly prioritize and protect our peace.
Oh yeah, those catchphrases are everywhere.
Right. So is this extreme boundary setter actually a productivity genius who has successfully hacked the modern workplace? Or are they just a toxic teammate who is building an island that nobody wants to visit?
That's the real question.
Because, sure, you leave at 5:00 p.m. today, but what happens the moment you actually do need a favor?
That is the crucial pivot right there, and it highlights the fatal flaw of the dragon persona.
Okay, so it isn't a perfect strategy.
Not at all. Yes, they protect their time in the short term, and their daily metrics might look fantastic, but the management studies show they severely compromise their long-term resilience.
So if their metrics are good, shouldn't they be fine?
Because organizations, despite all their flaws and focus on KPIs, are still fundamentally human ecosystems.
Right.
They rely on the sociology of reciprocity. If you treat every interaction as an attack on your time, you systematically destroy your social capital.
That makes sense.
When the dragon inevitably makes a mistake, which everyone does, right? Or they need someone to cover for them during a personal crisis, they look around and find themselves completely isolated. Nobody will throw them a life preserver.
Because they spent the last 2 years actively refusing to throw a life preserver to anyone else.
Yeah.
It's like mutual assured isolation.
Exactly. Mutual assured isolation. They survive the day-to-day by alienating the very people they will inevitably need to rely on when things go wrong. A healthy career requires a web of reciprocal relationships, not a fortress.
Okay, so we're looking at two deeply flawed strategies here.
Very flawed.
We have the resentful martyr who is burning out from saying yes to everything, and we have the isolated boundary protector who is totally alienated from saying no to everything.
A classic rock in a hard place.
Yeah. And this brings us to a moment where I think everyone listening, you, me, all of us, we need to do a little self-reflection. We have to figure out the actual psychological driver behind these behaviors.
Because it is rarely just about the work itself or even the time management.
Right.
It's about what the work represents to our ego and our sense of security within the group.
Yes, and I want to be really clear here before we dive into this part. I completely reject the standard cliche workplace advice you always hear when this topic comes up. You know, the HR blogs that just say, well, you just need to find a balance.
Oh, the mythical middle ground.
Right. Find a balance is such a massive cop-out. It completely ignores the root of the problem. Telling someone who is drowning in people-pleasing tendencies to find a balance is like telling someone freezing in a blizzard to just, be a little warmer.
Yeah, totally useless advice.
It doesn't give you any actual tools, it doesn't explain the mechanics of the storm, and it completely ignores why we act this way in the first place.
This raises an important question then. If it is not about adjusting some imaginary dial to find a mythical balance, what is actually driving this dynamic?
Lay it on me.
Well, the behavioral studies reveal a really uncomfortable truth here, specifically regarding the trait of agreeableness. Being nice in the workplace is very often just a lazy shortcut to avoid the awkwardness of saying no.
Wait, calling someone's niceness a lazy shortcut is pretty harsh. Are you saying people aren't actually trying to be collaborative?
The research differentiates between genuine collaboration and conflict avoidance. We tell ourselves we are being generous team players.
Right.
But psychologically speaking, generosity implies a free, unburdened gift. If you are saying yes to a coworker while your internal monologue is secretly seething with resentment about how late you'll have to work, that is not generosity.
Oh, wow.
That is an amygdala response. It is conflict avoidance masquerading as teamwork. You aren't protecting the team's goals. You are protecting yourself from the momentary acute discomfort of setting a boundary and facing social friction.
Here's where it gets really interesting, and I want to put this directly to you listening right now, because that psychological breakdown changes everything.
It really does.
The next time that DM pops up, the next time someone asks for a quick favor, I want you to look in the mirror and ask yourself a really hard question. Are you actually helping them out of genuine generosity because you have the time and expertise? Or are you just feeding a pathological need to be liked while they literally eat your lunch?
It requires a brutal level of honesty, because true boundary setting, the kind that actually earns long-term professional respect rather than just short-term compliance, requires facing that fear of conflict head-on.
It's so hard to do, though.
It is. It means looking at a colleague or typing back on Slack and saying, I can't take this on right now, my priorities are tied up with this other project, and then sitting in the uncomfortable silence that follows.
Sitting in the silence, that is the absolute hardest part.
Oh, without a doubt.
The urge to immediately backpedal and say, but if you really need me to, I can probably squeeze it in, is just so strong.
It is agonizing for a people pleaser because your brain interprets that silence as social rejection. You're just waiting for them to be mad at you.
Right, you feel like you've ruined the relationship.
Exactly. But from an organizational standpoint, what you are actually doing is establishing a professional parameter. You aren't being mean, you are being clear. And clarity is ultimately far kinder and far more sustainable than a resentful, half-hearted yes.
So it's about shifting the perspective. The martyr avoids the immediate conflict, the awkwardness of the no, but basically guarantees long-term resentment and burnout.
Yep.
But the true professional embraces the immediate small conflict to preserve the long-term working relationship and their own capacity to do deep work.
Exactly. You have to stop confusing compliance with collaboration.
Ooh, say that again.
You have to stop confusing compliance with collaboration. Collaboration is two people bringing their strengths together. Compliance is just you doing what someone else wants because you are too afraid to assert your own needs.
Wow. Stop confusing compliance with collaboration. That is a powerful distinction, and it completely reframes how we should look at our daily interactions.
I think so too.
Look, we really want to hear from you on this. Head down to the comments wherever you are listening. Tell us your stories. Let it all out.
Yes, please share.
Who is the credit vampire in your office? I mean, you don't have to name names, but tell us what they do. How do they operate? And how do you personally handle the quick question traps? Have you found a way to say no and establish those professional parameters without turning into the isolated dragon who alienates everyone? We want to read those experiences.
And as you reflect on your own office dynamics and where you fall on that spectrum, I want to leave you with one final, much broader thought to mull over.
Oh, here we go.
We've spent this time analyzing our own psychology, our fear of conflict, our need to be liked, the way our brains process social friction. But let's zoom out and look at the macro level.
Okay, zooming out.
If your company's day-to-day survival actually depends on the uncredited, unpaid emotional labor of nice employees constantly rescuing their peers to meet deadlines, is the problem really just your selfish coworkers? Or are you working within a fundamentally broken organizational design that intentionally profits off of your inability to set boundaries?
Man, that is a heavy thought to leave on. Are we blaming the individual for a systemic feature of the corporate model?
It's worth considering.
Are they literally exploiting the fact that human biology makes you too scared to say no? It is absolutely something to chew on during your next team meeting.
Good luck out there.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the psychology of the modern workplace. It's been such an eye-opening conversation. And hey, for the rest of the day, maybe just leave your Do Not Disturb status on for a little while longer.
Just a little bit.
Sit in that uncomfortable silence. Let them wait. We'll catch you next time.